Let's get to Robin tonight, because I know, Robin, you and I are watching these pictures again this evening. We're now in our 8th night of protests in this country. There are protests at this hour in New York City. The curfew went into effect at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's earlier than last night. You can see the protesters crossing the Manhattan Bridge into lower Manhattan. And Robin, it was so unsettling in Manhattan last night, hearing the helicopters, the police choppers overhead, and the sirens really straight through the night.
I'm sure that's the case that people are hearing in many places in this country. And as you know, David, protests also taking place right now in the nation's capital tonight, with the White House and Washington Monument in the background. Attorney General Bill Barr today saying there is an even greater law enforcement presence there at this hour. And Byron, what's going on now in Los Angeles?
Robin, in the West tonight, a state of emergency remains in effect in Los Angeles County. Cities in Southern California extending their curfews at least another day. Peaceful protesters marching again today, not with one message, but with two. Justice for George Floyd, and for those using the protest for violence, looting, and vandalism to stop. ABC's Matt Gutman in Los Angeles. Matt.
Hey, Byron, we have been marching with protesters probably about 25 miles over the past several days. Tens of thousands of them today. Everybody we saw marching peacefully, and it has culminated and ended here right outside the mayor's house. That is Eric Garcetti's house right there. Forgive the pixelated image if that happens. And right there is a standoff between police and protesters. It is now 6:10 p.m. curfew. We have seen a noticeably more relaxed attitude from law enforcement here in Los Angeles today, essentially allowing marchers to go almost wherever they please. We don't know if they're going to try to shut this down at one point. We've seen protesters also just playing along and doing what they need to do. Everybody seems to be abiding by the rules at this point. No significant looting, but all of this comes after L.A. has arrested 2,700 people over the past several days, and people are very upset about that. Robin.
I'm sure they are. All right, Matt, thank you so much. So what is it like to be a protester, to be there on the streets? Well, 50 years ago, in a time of nationwide rioting, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? Well, now the peaceful protests of this past week, black and white, we're seeing black and white marching near battalions of police, black and white. The hope? To hear each other.
So I'm out here protesting in D.C. They've already gassed a couple people. It's kind of hard to breathe. The movement can't stop. We don't have time to rest. What do we want? What do we want it?
For the past 3 days, 23-year-old Ariana Evans has taken to the streets of Washington, D.C.
No justice!
No peace! She has never protested before, but horrified by the video of George Floyd, Ariana felt compelled to act.
I'm fighting for the chance to walk out and not have to be paranoid. I'm fighting for my chance to actually feel protected by the people that are supposed to protect me.
A former private in the Army, Ariana is now a freshman at Prince George's Community College.
I've cried over this for years. We've been fighting the same battle, and yet here we are. We're still doing the same thing. Nothing has changed.
Nearly 1,700 miles away, Winston Boney and Jason Martin, an engaged couple, are joining their first Black Lives Matter protest.
We were getting rubber bullets shot at us, pepper sprayed, tear gas.
The screams, the tears, the signs, just the emotion, it was so much.
Back in Washington, D.C., Ariana is adamant that the protests remain peaceful, even breaking away from our interview to shout down two fighting protesters.
Stop! The whole point of this is to show them that we are better! So stop! Honestly, I understand why everybody's angry. I get it. I understand that you want to burn everything down. But every time you do that, you are setting us back. No justice!
All across the country, the protests were mostly peaceful, but sometimes tense, as Winston and Jason suddenly witnessed a standoff of sorts unfold.
This one black man took a kneel for police injustices, and he was alone. There was a palpable fear. You could feel it in the air. We were all scared for his life.
For some reason, it struck me. I felt like my purpose there was not to be behind him. I felt like my purpose there was to be in front protecting him. And at which point I just completely acted on impulse and walked up, stood in front of the man, you know, with my arms up.
Jason says in that instant, he felt no fear.
I was not afraid, and that is largely because of my skin color.
Yes, baby! That one action was a catalyst for all of us to move forward in solidarity.
Similar images echoing across the country.
I will never know their struggle. I will never know how that feels. All I can do is stand there. I can be a voice. Stand up for your fellow human beings.
A day later, nearly 1,300 miles away in Bellevue, Washington, it was a white police chief, a 31-year veteran, taking a knee himself alongside a crowd of protesters.
What happened to George Floyd was wrong. It was a crime. The officers that were involved need to go to prison.
I went in there to listen, to hear them, to make sure that they knew that somebody was listening. Somebody who looks like me, somebody in a uniform.
I swore if I ever became a police officer, one of my primary missions is to eradicate injustice, eradicate discrimination.
The officer standing next to the chief's right is Demetrius Shaw, who's been on the force for 17 years.
Y'all call me sellout, house, all kinds of stuff. But look up. How else are we gonna change it? You got a bunch of beautiful black men over here behind the badge, making change.
And I want to make a different narrative. I put myself in harm's way. My family cries every night. You know, Dad's making a change, but we don't know if he's coming home. So there are people out there willing to put themselves in harm's way to make a change.
In the past 3 days, Ariana Evans has been putting herself in harm's way, also hoping to make a change.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, nobody wants to be out here getting shot by rubber bullets. I got shot by rubber bullets yesterday with my hands up, protesting peacefully. I got shot in my back, and I also got shot by pepper spray pellets.
But her voice remains unwavering in the midst of chaos, and she has no plans to stop from being heard.
What keeps me going is the fact that this cannot be over. My fight cannot be over until racism is. And if you really want to change something, you have to fight for it.
David and Byron, of course, we have been here before. We have seen protests before. We have seen demonstrations before. But somehow, this time it seems different. And the hope is that this time the outcome will be different as well.
Yeah, we're all hoping so, Robin. And you and I have talked about this, how moved we all have been by the younger generation, black, white, Latinos, Asian Americans out there protesting. And so much has been made, Byron, about graduates this year. We all have loved ones in our families who are graduating. People have talked about a stolen graduation, but perhaps in some sense, this is their greater purpose. They'll be the generation that makes change.
Oh, without question. I mean, certainly they missed the pomp and circumstance of graduation, but you're right. There now seems to be purpose for this generation. And I think it leaves all of us hopeful that with their enthusiasm, the way they see race, that I think many of us came of age that certainly America is better than it once was, but this new generation says she can be better.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.